Hello everyone, my name is Kai. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we'll be going over the first generation low income experience here at Wharton, as well as the greater University of Pennsylvania. I'm here with my friend Daniel, and we'll be talking about imposter syndrome, the QuestBridge Scholarship, how we found community at Penn, mental health, and more. So welcome, Daniel.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get into it. So first things first, please like this video and subscribe. We're currently at 1,260 subscribers, so that's really cool. And if you have any questions about me or Daniel, please let us know in the comments or message us directly. This is a continuation of that. You can also message us through LinkedIn. Just mention the video and yeah.
Okay.
Cool. And then this is our video roadmap. So first we'll be going through our introductions, and then the QuestBridge match story. We'll then go into our childhood and our upbringing, and after that we'll be going into our college experience, dealing with imposter syndrome, and covering Daniel's mention in Poets and Quants, which is, I think, really cool. After that we'll be going into community at Penn, as well as the mental health scene at Penn, and then we'll be talking about our shared experience within volunteering and tax assistance within the Philadelphia community. And then we'll be ending it with tips to high school students, college students, and our closing thoughts.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right, let's do that. So, first things first, hello everyone, my name is Kai. I'll introduce myself. I'm a senior at Penn. I am concentrating in finance and business analytics and also studying minors in computer science and data science. After college, I want to be a mountaineer, and I'll be going to Nepal in September 2025, so that'll be super exciting. And I'll pass it off to my friend Daniel to introduce himself as well.
Yeah, so I'm Daniel. I'm a senior at UPenn as well. I'm concentrating in business analytics and entrepreneurship, which is an interesting story because I got that by accident. I just happened to have all the required credits for it because of my electives. But I'm going to be starting as a product manager after graduating.
Yes, sir. And yeah, I think we should talk about our QuestBridge match story. So we're both QuestBridge scholars. Do you want to handle the first question? What is QuestBridge?
Yeah, I can handle the first question. So QuestBridge is effectively a way to pipeline really bright and intelligent high schoolers to places of opportunity. So what they've done is they've built a model for getting some of those smartest people that are low income and can't get that initial access, the support that they need and the community that they need to not only connect to these colleges and universities, but also have a community the moment that they land there.
Exactly, yeah. And the QuestBridge match process starts really early, and it starts when you're a high school senior, but I think it starts in September.
Yeah.
And I remember filling out my application August, July, and then you submit it, I think, late August, early September, and then you get your match results back in December 1st.
Yeah, December 1st, I remember.
Yeah. And yeah, so what made my application stand out, I think, was I think I really talked about, in my supplement, I talked about how courage is something that I really want to work on, and I mentioned a story where I was at a chess tournament. So I played competitive chess in high school, but I mentioned how at this specific chess tournament, someone sort of fell over in his chair and was having a heart attack. And although I was a Boy Scout and I had, done first aid and I practiced CPR on a dummy, it took me so much energy and so much thought to basically say, hey, let me do CPR, I can do it. And what ended up happening was the people that were trying to do CPR, and it was 3 50-year-old guys, but they just looked at me and they ignored me. But they were doing it wrong too. But I was saying hey, let me do it.
Yeah.
And I said it, let me do it, and then they ignored me, and then I ended up sort of retreating back, lost all my confidence, and I wrote about how I didn't get the job done, and how even though I was physically prepared to do CPR and I've done it on a dummy before, I've gone through all that process, having that mental courage was just so hard to do, and how I wanted to implement more courage in future situations. Yeah.
I would say what made my application stand out is, well, for one, QuestBridge allows you to say more about what you've done. And if you're someone that's a jack of all trades, which quite a few people that come to Penn are, you don't have that much opportunity to do that with a regular application. So having a broader platform to mention pretty much everything worked well. For me, where I sort of had my branding was centered around leadership. I did student council all 4 years of high school. I think it was class president, student council vice president, and then president of the student council. I was also on the youth advisory board for my county executive. So leadership was a big thing. I was in leader in other clubs as well. The next portion was focus on economics as an intellectual pursuit, which, as I am now, is definitely not an intellectual pursuit for me. But at the time, I was taking economics classes just for the elective, not needed to graduate. I was writing a fellows project on sort of the economic situations that were involved in COVID-19. So I had that as an intellectual pursuit. And generally speaking, that was just curiosity has always been a part of me. So I made sure to emphasize that. The final portion was community service and leadership in community service. So I had started this community service event since freshman year, which was something we called the Kids Fair. And that was not an organization, but we organized just a day of fun for our underserved communities. And we had partners, two distinct partners that we partnered with to bring about that day and to work with them with their kids. And it was such an impactful experience for me that I think definitely shaped my college application and shaped my approach to just life more broadly. So having those three things was what I think made my college application stand out.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that on my end, I think I also had a jack of all trades application. I mentioned, I think I played chess a lot, so that was my intellectual pursuit. I also was really big into Boy Scouts, and I became an Eagle Scout. I also mentioned my school involvements, swimming, frisbee. I also ran a marathon. And although I didn't really have a particular application for Wharton, because I think they might be looking for finance experience, stuff like that, I think I had a very holistic application that I guess qualified me to enter Penn. So it wasn't necessarily like you have to cater your entire application to a certain like archetype.
Yeah.
But
No.
just be authentic to yourself.
Be authentic to yourself, I think, is a very good statement. I think one thing, though, about the college application is branding is important to some degree. What they're trying to understand is not just who you are, but get an estimate on what you would do in the future once you have your degree and you have this experience. So understanding that vision for yourself, even though it's not clear and concrete with what career you want to do, where you see yourself fitting is a good way to start. And don't be vague and say, oh, I really like to learn. And then you name all the things that you're learning. Be somewhat specific on what category, what niche, and what value that has to you. And that'll make you feel more authentic and more purposeful. Which is hard to do when you're in high school. No one's purposeful in high school.
Yeah, I would say be unique, and you don't have to cater your application to that particular college or degree. Just be who you are and show why you're a unique person. I think I would like to ask about your QuestBridge match story. Like, what was like the initial reactions, and like how did you rank your colleges, and just any of that?
I can start with ranking. So, to full disclosure, I did not tap into the college process or just understanding colleges until August, to be perfectly frank. And the only reason I was able to get through QuestBridge and get through my application process was because there was this low income, high performance student, low income college counseling program. I completely forget the name. Just insane. I think it was called College Point. And so they had assigned me, I applied for it, and they had assigned me a counselor, and she really helped me get through the application process. But to give you a sense of how lackluster in my understanding the college application was, my ranking was Penn, UVA, and Duke. Now, as you know, those are very radically different cultures
Mm-hmm.
and very radically different colleges. I think what I did at that time was just, I just looked, oh, I want to do business. What are the best universities for business? And then I looked at a whole bunch of different things, like, okay, this seems like a good mix. Without doing enough sort of outreach to talk to students there and understand the culture.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my ranking. Now, my story itself, I didn't understand the significance of it at the time. I mean, I did and I didn't.
Same,
You get what I mean? Like, I understood that it was an Ivy League university, but at the same time, nobody that's low income for the most part knows what Penn is. Probably not until recently, when we're in the news and stuff. But nobody would know what Penn is. Nobody knew what Wharton is. At least like in the circles I hung out in, in circles I lived, and so I didn't quite understand the significance of going to Penn, Wharton specifically,
Mm-hmm.
but I understood the significance of a full ride to an Ivy. And off of that alone, like, I was hyped because that had always been my family's hope for me to go to a full ride into college. And to give some perspective or some context, I'm a Nigerian immigrant myself. I immigrated here when I was 8 years old. And really, quite a bit of that immigrant story is a value for education, and the apex of that is going to college for free. So I had always heard my entire life, oh, get a full ride, get a full ride. So to actually have that build up since a youngin all the way to when you actually succeed and make it, that was fantastic for me. And I always remember when I opened it up, like, I was sitting at the dining room table, I was typing, this was COVID, so obviously, like, we're all online and everything. I opened up the email and it's like, you were accepted, congratulations, you matched. And it was like, wow. I had called my brother, and my brother like, hey, I matched, and I dapped him up, and I was like,
Let's go.
let's actually go. Nothing like the usual, when they're recording, it's like, huh? It wasn't anything like that. It was just you get up, you're hyped for a moment, you're like, yeah, I got it. And then you share it with your friends and enjoy that moment for yourself.
Gotcha. And then, so for my QuestBridge match story, I ranked, I think, Stanford, UPenn, and then the four others were, I forgot the order, it was Columbia, Yale, Princeton, MIT. And I think growing up, I always wanted to get into Penn, but I also wanted to get into Stanford because the weather was so much better in Stanford. I just want to go to Stanford. Like, I have to go there.
Where are you from?
I'm also from Philadelphia.
Okay.
By the way. Yeah. So I'm from Northeast Philadelphia. I went to school at a magnet school called Julia R. Masterman, and the class size is typically about 110, 120 students, and every year we send about 25 students to Penn.
Okay.
Right? So I think growing up in that environment, in that school environment, I was very cocky, but I said, hey, like, UPenn is guaranteed for me, right? So I really wanted to get into Stanford. So when I got the email and I saw that it was from University of Pennsylvania, I knew that Penn accepted me. So when I opened up the email and I saw the confetti, I actually had the opposite reaction, I think, of most people. I was actually disappointed.
That's fair.
And I was like, damn, like, didn't get Stanford, but I got into Penn. But I really do appreciate that I got into Penn just because I'm here with many of my high school friends, and I think the adjustment period, which we'll talk about later on, but adjusting to college was really difficult for me, and because I had those friends from high school who were also here with me, it made that adjustment period a lot better. And I think without my friends, and if I were to be at another college away from home, it would have been a very hard struggle for me in freshman year. Yeah. But I would say getting matched to, it was such a big achievement for me, right? Like, my parents have never went to college. I also was born in China, immigrated much younger when I was 1, but I lived in Chinatown and lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, all of that. And my parents would have been happy if I went to community college or if I went to Drexel or Temple University, which are local colleges here in Philadelphia. But I somehow got into UPenn Wharton, and that was, I don't know, my parents were so happy for me, and I was very cocky at the time and did not really appreciate the severity of the entire situation. But looking back at it now, it was definitely a momentous, I guess, occasion in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So now we'll go into our childhood. I I think it's good to discuss like our upbringing. I'd like to hear more about your Nigerian immigrant story, and I can talk about
Mm-hmm.
my Chinese immigrant story. And we'll talk about, I guess, what it was like being first generation low income. Were there any struggles that we had? Any preconceived notions about the world that came as a result of being figly?
Mm-hmm.
As well as talking about how we were in middle school and high school. So would you like to talk about it, or should I
Yeah,
talk about
I
it first?
can talk about my upbringing. I had really what you can consider a very standard Nigerian upbringing. Um, I guess standard is not the right word to use. As far as how I was raised, the template was standard, but in the context in which I was raised, it was very unconventional. So I grew up with in Nigeria till I was 8. My father was living here, sort of setting up the environment for us to
Mm-hmm.
come. And so when my family came, I entered elementary school. And I would say I had a couple pivotal points in my life. The first pivotal point was in 5th grade when my school principal connected me into one of the private schools in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to get a financial aid to get into that. And that private school did quite a bit for me to develop myself as a leader
Mm-hmm.
and just gave me opportunities to act on my curiosity and act on my ambition that I probably would not have gotten the opportunity to do elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So in that initial stage in middle school, I wasn't a leader yet. Like, it's very rare for anyone to be a leader at that time. So I was just the first person to volunteer for everything, because I would always feel bad at that awkward moment where there's silence and the teacher wants you to do something and no one volunteers for it.
Mm-hmm.
I still do that now. I still am the first person to answer questions or fill in the silence just to break the ice, because I've always felt bad. I don't know why I have that trait.
Mm-hmm.
But when you volunteer first so often, people start to take notice and you start owning the intent behind different things. I think for me that was community service club at the time, and sort of being the only 6th grader that was like hosting a session for community service. We had, I forget what it was, something akin to community service day where we educated ourselves. I don't know, I can't quite remember. But that was sort of my rise. I did a tiny bit of student council, like some representative position or whatever. And the fit got a little better for me in middle school. And then I go into high school and I kind of have a bit of a spark and a bit of a jump in terms of what I'm interested and willing to do and my eagerness to pursue it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was when I guess I got student council president. I started, doing some community service things, starting my own community service event, doing several different components that were exciting for me. And at that point, all of the Nigerian upbringing of focus on school, try to be the best you can be, all of that had really stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to the point of just being a natural internal motivator. And because of that, I was just genuinely excited about the ideas I had in my head to do, whether it was joining a club or taking advantage of whatever opportunities were in front of me, purely out of curiosity and purely out of interest. And do it like it starts to build and you start to get some pivots in there. I would say the second most pivotal moment within like my upbringing, which at this point I'm 15, is when my father passed away, and that was a difficult moment for myself and my family. I think from there, really trying to keep that internal motor going and a genuine appreciation for the sacrifice that was made there. That was crucial for me, and it dictated quite a bit of how I tried to conduct myself in school. And I think quite a bit of that, even in school, because I was, the figly student on financial aid in an environment where so many of them were wealthy. Like, they lived by the water, their family had boats. I went to a friend's place one time and she had as far as I understood, a mansion. Like,
Yeah.
we were studying, and the room that we were studying in, that just tiny room in that house, was bigger than my apartment. Like, that was a very enlightening experience for me.
Mm.
But I did enough to, thrive academically and, in terms of my extracurricular activities that kind of the gap between the two wasn't as insane. Because of the Nigerian upbringing, I didn't, my mom would not let me go to nobody's house. Like, at least until I was a junior, senior year, she allowed me to do it quite a bit. Freshman year, absolutely not. Sophomore year, a tiny bit, she'd, drive me over to somebody's place, pick me up. What's funny about that is after senior year, people go out to, I forget what it's called, but they go out to have a little, they rent out an Airbnb on the beach or something at my school, and like they all pitch in and they do have fun and party together. My mom was like, absolutely not, you're not doing that. And that's an interesting pivot, and once we talk a little bit about our college story, because when it comes to getting freedom in college, that was night and day. But because of that, I ended up treating being at school almost like a professional endeavor, which was funny because in all the ways that I was quirky and weird, like I was in Latin club, president of Latin club, I did very well in like the JCL exams, blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry, the NLE. And I did a lot of nerd shit. And I was really just, I guess I surrounded myself with people of similar interests and niches. I still somehow presented myself every day as though, okay, this is Daniel in a professional environment, this is what is expected of you, as student council president, blah, 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 blah. Like, execute on this, that, and the third, right? And when I get home, like, I'm with the guys, I'm with my brother, like, I'm out, like, even the code switch is completely different. And it felt as though that was very much a separate segment. If you want to talk about my high school identity, I had the somewhat professional show up in the way that you're expected, Daniel at school, and then the, you lay back, you chill, you talk with you have whatever type of fun that you're having at home. And that was a little, like, the code switch, especially from that, was kind of insane. I'm not gonna lie. The code switch was kind of insane. And so, because of that, like, even in the neighborhood I live in, predominantly Black and Latino, the school I went to, predominantly white. That gap, predominantly low income versus they, like, live on the water around, like, that sort of thing. So that gap was always interesting to sort of have a foot in both of those worlds.
Yeah.
But that helped me get into Penn a decent bit. And I'll talk about my Penn experience when we get to it, but I got comfortable in those environments. I got comfortable with that level of, I wouldn't necessarily say imposter syndrome, because my mind wasn't, like, I didn't have the depth of understanding enough to get imposter syndrome when I was in high school. And that's mainly because I went to the middle school, right? So how can I be part of the imposter syndrome when, I was already pipelined into the high school? But that really sums up my upbringing. It was kind of living in those two worlds with the context of that Nigerian background of, be the best you can be and always aim for the highest thing you can think of. And it really pushed me to explore anything I was passionate or curious about, which brings in that, like, whole jack of all trades thing. It's like, you do that purely out of curiosity. It's not I need to do this, that, and third to get this for the sake of success. I didn't even think about college until August of right before my senior year. It's just like, I thought this was very cool and I want to be a part of that, and I'm volunteering for this and that and the third. And so that really sums up where the upbringing was. I don't know if that's what you were aiming to hit
I think that's exactly
Okay.
what I was looking for. I think I can also share my upbringing, and I think it's very similar to yours. Maybe not as extreme in certain manners, but I think the structure and how it affected me is also similar. So, just to reiterate, I was born in China. I moved over when I was 1. Lived in Chinatown, Philadelphia, up until I was 10. And I am an only child. Grew up with my mom and dad in a 1-bedroom apartment. And it wasn't the best apartment, right? Like, there were, like, holes in the apartment. There were, like, some rats. But I didn't know that I was necessarily poor growing up. I just thought that this was, like, how everyone lived.
Yeah.
And I went to a local elementary school. It was like 80% Asian and connected with a lot of different people there. But I think when I got into Masterman, which is arguably the #1 public school in Pennsylvania, I got into the 6th grade. started going to school in Center City now. And at that time, I was also now living in Northeast Philadelphia. And where I lived in Northeast Philadelphia was a predominantly low-income white neighborhood, I would say.
Yeah.
There were definitely other minorities, but you would definitely meet a lot of white people whose parents are like firemen, police officers, sort of like blue-collar laborers. And that was really cool, just hanging out with a bunch of white kids, and I really liked that. But when I went to, master in middle and high school, that's when you started seeing people from other more affluent parts of the city. So I initially was so surprised to see so many white people at school. I was like, wait, not everyone's here is Asian? Like, I thought America was just a bunch of Asians, to be honest, right? But I think when the wealth differences started hitting me was when I went to my friends' houses, and these guys were only like lower middle class or just middle class. And I go into their house, and you just see their ceiling just be 3 feet higher than my ceiling. And I was like, it feels so different here. Like, what is this? Wait, all that ceiling, all that extra space, they could have added like another floor to this building. Like, wait, their windows are so much bigger. Oh, their countertops. Wait, their countertops, their fridge, their everything. It's all color schemed together. Just seeing those little details in people's houses and the furnishings, and seeing a coffee table with some magazines and seeing coasters, like seeing all that extra stuff was such a shock to me. I was like, wait, this costs $5. This costs whatever dollars. Like, how do you just buy this? It was just insane to me, right? So that was a crazy shock. And yeah, growing up, it was pretty difficult because my mom, she worked like 3 jobs at any given point, but she worked as like a seamstress in Chinatown. She also worked, and she currently works as a lunch lady at the elementary school that I went to. She also works as she works as a lunch lady at the elementary school, and she works as a waitress at local Chinese restaurants. And my dad, growing up, my dad struggled a lot with unemployment, and that was a result of how he was raised and how that affected him. But he really struggled with unemployment, anger issues, drinking issues, and we pretty much only had one income providing for 3 people during my early formative years. And seeing how my dad was and how he struggled really put a lot of resentment towards him, as well as a fire inside of me wanting to become the best at what I'm doing. So during middle school and high school, I think I did a lot of things with like a certain like inner rage. Like, I just wanted to do better, be better, and seeing all my richer friends, I had so much resentment towards them because it seemed to me they were living the easy life. They had parents that loved them. They were able to go to swim practice and go to like a swimming pool, and that membership would cost $400 a month. Stuff like that. And I'm like, whoa, like they have so much shit that I don't have. And that's when I searched up top paying jobs in America, and one of them was investment banker. And to me that made the most sense because you get to work with money. So in my head I was thinking that can compound a lot more than being a doctor or being an engineer, right? So I wanted to become an investment banker. And one of my main motivations to become a banker was so that I can enter into Wall Street and basically compete with other peers who come from more affluent backgrounds and just like win.
No, I get that vibe. I understand that.
Yeah, it wasn't like a revenge story, but it was like, I just want to compete with some people that I really resented growing up and just show them who's boss. And yeah, that kind of affected me during college here as well. But I would say that a lot of my school involvements growing up were chess, Boy Scouts, sports, and I was really into chess from 6th grade to high school. Played competitive chess, played in tournaments like twice a month, went to all over the country. And funny thing enough was all my chess tournaments were paid for by my chess coach because I couldn't afford it myself. Right? So I have a lot to thank him for that.
Yeah.
Just having a mentor and having other male figures in my life that had a positive impact on me was really great. And that also like occurred during Boy Scouts, where my scoutmaster taught me how to have fun, how to go camping, all of that. And I really appreciate him for all that he's done, because within my Boy Scout troop, pretty much everyone was like a poor white kid from Northeast Philadelphia. And their parents grew up in Northeast Philadelphia. They grew up in Northeast Philadelphia. Everyone works a job in Northeast Philadelphia. And I was the only, I guess, outsider where I was able to go to school in Center City. And seeing that difference was also pretty stark. I was like, wow, like, I'm so lucky to be going to a magnet school and to have access to all these different people with these different, I guess, ways of living and what they know about. Wow. I feel like everyone in my troop, it was a more homogenous mix of what your typical white Northeast Philadelphian was. Yeah, so very grateful to have that diverse set of identities growing up, if that makes sense.
No, I think that's great. Well, to talk a little bit about point of perspective on what's normal, I used to think if someone had a staircase in their house, they were rich. Because anyone that I knew, there's no one has a staircase, so you have multiple floors. I'm like, wow, you're fucking wealthy. That wasn't until maybe high school when I went to a friend's house and he had an elevator in his house. I was like, okay, maybe there's actually.
Oh yeah, I saw an elevator.
I saw that. I was like, yeah, wow. But it seems there's a common theme here for the Path for FGLI students, where you need benefactors early on to take a chance on you and put you in positions where you're better primed to get into these higher level institutions. And so I guess for me, the benefactor was my elementary school principal taking me into high school, and the high school teachers, as well as QuestBridge and College Point, that helped me get into Penn. And I'm sure I'll have benefactors, even moving from here. But that's an interesting, I wish that there was maybe a third perspective of someone that we can talk to here. Is like someone that wasn't, I don't know, like, is there a way outside of getting some early opportunities and going to places where, like, will Penn even look at and support a low-income person from a school that isn't somewhat reputable for their area? It's what I'm curious about. And I'm curious about the journey of what exactly would it take for someone to come from a place that Penn wouldn't typically look at. And what exactly would you need to do to make it here? It must be some of the more incredible stories that we could ever talk about.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you.
We should do another segment of this. Find somebody that literally remade the earth in order to come here, moved to heaven and earth to do that.
Yeah, very unlikely background, and they just like pulled up and they're here. Yeah, I think definitely I can. Yeah. Cool. Let's go on to the next section. So now we'll be going more into our college experiences and dealing with imposter syndrome. I can go first. I think upon my arrival at Penn, I didn't know what to expect. But I'm living in the quad, which is a freshman dormitory, and you just see people going to parties, doing a bunch of different things. And there's also a whole club recruitment process I was not aware of. And I start seeing all these different freshmen saying, oh yeah, I applied to these 20 clubs. I did this. I went through round 1, round 2, round 3. And I was like, what the heck is going on? Yeah. There are rounds to get into clubs. I have to interview to get into a club. This is completely unlike high school. And I think they spoke so sophisticated as well. They were very polished. They knew what to talk about. And to me, there seemed to be more, I won't say it was like fakeness, but it was like laughing at the right moments, chuckling at the right moments, making comments at those right moments. And for me, I felt like I was out of the loop. Like, I was like, wait, like, how's that funny? Or, oh, am I supposed to like butt into this conversation? I was completely out of the loop in terms of what to talk about and in terms of like what shared commonalities I had with many people, right? So I think that contributed to a lot of imposter syndrome. And going to class, seeing everyone else, I always felt out of place. And I think one big reason for that was because in freshman year, I spoke like I had a lot of like Philadelphia vernacular in me. Like I would say young bull, stuff like that. John, a lot of Philly slang. And that was always in me, and seeing people talk more professionally, normally,
Yeah.
I was like, what the heck? I cannot relate. So I think that's my story with imposter syndrome. That definitely carried over, especially when I started having, I guess, not the best grade results,
Mm.
struggling in school. I started thinking to myself, am I really built for Penn? Am I really built for Wharton itself? And at some point, I also considered transferring out of Wharton.
Mm.
And that was a difficult sort of time freshman year. But yeah, definitely struggled with a lot with imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I think imposter syndrome is a common thing here at Penn. I think one of the things that you mentioned was that form of manufactured authenticity where everyone's trying to get to know each other or exist in this common space, and so they sort of do a mean reversion towards this
Okay.
mode of speaking. I would say for me, unfortunately, that's just how I've always spoken.
Mm-hmm.
In context, when I need to be very specific about what I mean. If I'm just hanging out, generally speaking, with my friends, like I'm gonna talk however I want to talk. But for me, getting into Penn, I got that same vibe. Actually, when I touched down, I had this friend who received this document list of all the people, the seniors to talk to and their leadership positions. And it was just like, oh shit, I probably should lock in
Yeah.
and work on getting these like club applications in. So I went to the Wharton Fair, went to the SAG Fair. I'm like, oh, let me do this. So let me talk to who this, and the third, and understand how to do this. And then I come in, and it turns out there's this ridiculous game that's played where you have to go gun ho and be very intense about getting certain clubs. I will say that first semester was a very humbling and somewhat humiliating experience for me
Yeah.
because I never really had to practice pitching myself or figuring out how to do that and know what to say. Because when you go to a very small school and you like start off as a leader, whatever, your reputation already speaks for yourself. You don't have to pitch yourself. People make assumptions that you can do certain things that you have no ability to do, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, they make that assumptions and it kind of, upcycles yourself, fake it till you make it situation. But when you actually have to step up and say, hey, this is who I am, and you're not polished, and you don't know what IB or high finance is, you don't know what technology is, you don't know what corporate life or anything is. I didn't know jack
Yeah.
coming into Penn. I didn't know a damn thing about anything. And I talked to quite a few seniors and got even more confused. And so with that imposter syndrome was, oh, wow, I didn't get into a single club I applied to my first semester. And I'm looking around and I have friends that are, getting into clubs and succeeding in that way, and they're getting to multiple of them. I'm like, well, I guess I'm just not. I guess I can't fit. I'm not good enough in
Yeah.
some senses. That's the initial bout with imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome builds in different ways here at Penn, where there's so much of what you can be, but there is too much of a focus on a certain segment of what you should be. And that's definitely that finance pipeline for Wharton.
Yeah.
I've never been a finance person, and I spent too much of my time here at Penn convincing myself that that was the right thing to do and that was the path to take. It wasn't until I had my last internship in product management where I thought, wow, this is the fit for me. This is something I want to do. I want to create, design, and come up with business justifications, do all the market research pieces. I didn't like consulting because I want to be part of the actual implementation and see it through.
Yeah.
But I talk with seniors like, oh, here's the path. You do this, blah blah blah. Hopefully by your sophomore year you do recruiting, you talk to so and so. They gave you the rundown. This is the path, and now you're supposed to do it. And I kept running into a conflict with that, and it kept being that who I was as a person was very jarring and hitting a roadblock on what I should be as somebody that wants to succeed and do well at Wharton specifically. And that sucked. I'm not gonna lie. That was a very sucky portion and component of my college experience.
Yeah.
Consistently dealing with that sense of not being, it's not even not being good enough, not even feeling that you were at standard, are on par. There were, even freshman year when people started getting their early internships, people were throwing parties. They get into MBB or get into some sort of
Yeah.
like some sort of finance program. They would throw a party and be like, "Oh, I got to so and so," and I'm like, "Oh shit." Uh, I was not on recruiting. I've never been on recruiting as much as I would say the average Wharton student is. So that imposter syndrome builds, and it especially builds when you have a disconnect between who you are and what you think you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so I'd say definitely dealing with imposter syndrome is trying your best to find your niche, which is ridiculous advice and so unspecific in the ways that it's needed to be useful. But trying your best to pursue the things that you think you can be good at. I think this is what good to great. Like, what are you good at? What is economically viable? And what do you think you're passionate enough to continue and see through? So if you can find those three things and get a good blend of that, I think it'll go a long way into getting through imposter syndrome and really blocking out some of that noise. But yeah, that freshman year was not, especially that first semester, not a fun time.
Yeah, and I think another thing to add on was the work hard, play hard culture. Like I would see people recruit so hard and get into 7 clubs, this and this and this, and they're doing really well academically, and then they go partying and they're having a blast, and I'm just really bad at both. And I think seeing that, you feel so incompetent to the people who are having the most fun and like going to nice restaurants, and they look really happy, and they probably were really happy. And
Pen face.
yeah, I mean, there's also like a pen face sort of component, and they're also like 5 clubs, and I was just thinking to myself, how are you that efficient at knocking out every single task?
Where do you get the time?
Because I had really bad study habits, really bad work habits in high school, and I came into Penn, and that was a crazy transition for me. But it seemed like these people knew what to do, or they just studied everything already, and they just came in just like, okay, I'm going to talk to this club. I'm going to talk to this. I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
You just seem to know where the fits were.
Yeah, and literally just the other day, I think earlier this week, I overheard someone, I think it was like one of the presidents of like an underclass year, but he was talking to a high schooler, and the high schooler was like, hey, how do I become president at Penn?
Of like the universe.
Like when she gets into Penn, like oh, how to become the president of like my school
UA.
year? Yeah.
Or, oh wow. I mean, that's not a bad question to ask.
She was like, oh, like what friends do I make? Who do I talk to? How do I do it fast? Like, I was just hearing high schoolers construct their whole strategic plans of getting popularity in college I think, is very strategic. In a way, it's admirable. It's like, whoa, like, you're very, you're planning this whole thing out. But also, like, what the heck? Like,
Yeah, no,
what the heck?
It's
That's kind of stupid.
It's interesting. As I got into higher leadership positions, and was president this year, I did some of that initial contact with high schoolers. And there's always been this question in the back of my head is that, do Wharton students come in like this, or are they turned into this? And there's truth in both, but an underrated bias on the fact that they do, in fact, come in like this. I was talking to some high schoolers, and they didn't tell me about themselves, their passions, their interests, what they like to do for fun, or ask me about what they like to do, what classes they should take, or things that they found to be interesting for the sake of being. It was, oh, how can I career fast track myself to this, that, and the third? And I'm like, wow, you have this opportunity to coffee chat with somebody that's at the end of the finish line. Not at the end, at the finish line. And you're focused on purely career for this.
Yeah.
You are beamed on. Just, oh, wow. You're exhausting to talk to. But you learn. I mean, everybody learns. I've seen this common thing where after people start to secure their full-time offers is when they start to bloom as actual people and not just vehicles for their own self-advancement. So it's an unfortunate course and pathway in the life of a Wharton student, but that is just how it is. I guess the next was wealth party culture.
Yeah.
But I spent too much of freshman year trying to be something I wasn't in terms of partying. I haven't, I'm not, I don't drink, right? Like, just a general rule. I've drank maybe 5 times in my life.
Mm.
Um, and one of them was by accident because I swapped, whatever. It's a funny story. Nothing about that. But I kept going to parties because my friends or some of the people I hung out with seemed to think, oh, it might be a fun thing to do, so you should go. And I just kept having awful experiences. I got, not in terms of really terrible experiences that you might hear at colleges, but I was overstimulated. I wasn't having fun. I didn't quite see what the excitement. Drunk people suck. They suck.
Yeah.
And I wasted too much time trying to engage in social situations, maybe even not just partying, but like in being in group friendships and whatnot. That just didn't fit me. Even now, most of my friendships are one-on-one. And I like it that way. I prefer it that way. It feels that people not just are more authentic, but are a better fit for you when they don't have to fit for other people as well. So that's kind of the concept there. But party culture, work hard, play hard. These are honestly some of the most impressive people in that regard.
Yeah.
Because they're not in a, some smart people are, oh, I'm effortlessly smart and I'm effortlessly, going to get the win. However, the people here, I go 100% all in all the time. And I live with the highest level of vitality possible.
Yeah.
I'm going to study till midnight and die on this hill to get into this club, to get into this academics, right? And I'm going to do the exact same energy, bring it into the party culture. And it's kind of amazing and surreal.
Yeah.
It was very much overwhelming freshman year seeing that happen. But as like sophomore year, junior year, by junior year, like juniors and seniors, they don't care that much about parties. They care about larger events for sure. I mean, at that point, they also have like money from internships. So there's some people, at least on the Wharton end, that'll go have like adults, quote unquote, real lives outside in Philadelphia in terms of their activities. I'm not really tapped into a lot of communities here at Penn. My only community, and we'll talk about that a little later, is really the Black community here at Penn. And I guess increasingly my scholars program, just a Wharton Scholars, like those two communities are really the communities I'm with here at Penn. But yeah, no, it's unique. I don't think there's a place like this anywhere else on earth. I genuinely don't.
Yeah, it's a very unique place to be in, and I'm very grateful to be part of that. I can talk more about my experience of partying and fraternity life. I never really partied in freshman year. I was also overstimulated. I didn't see the point in it. I was like, whoa, like I'm drinking and I'm getting drunk. Like that's so weird. But sophomore fall, I ended up rushing a frat.
Okay.
And throughout the entire initiation process, I drank a lot. I did a lot of things that were outside of my comfort zone.
Right.
And that sort of exposed me to more networking because you have to chat with every single brother. You have to get to know every single brother.
That's good.
And I came in as a very shy dude. I didn't know what was going on. And joining a frat, in a way, was very beneficial because it forced me out of my comfort zone. But for me, the party and the drinking culture was not for me. So I ended up dropping the frat earlier last year. So during my senior fall. But during my time there, I really did enjoy being in a frat, living at the house. So that was really cool. I would say that for like the wealth culture here at Penn, I don't really find my richer classmates as pretentious or not, but there is always sort of a culture disconnect sometimes.
There's a gap.
And sure. I think they're very nice people. I'm not gonna lie. And I came into Penn having like these preconceived stereotypes of richer people not being the best in terms of like mannerisms or that. And there are some that are like that, but there are also some from any income background that are like not nice people. But the friends that I made are very, very nice, and they come from all over. I guess the social income brackets. Yeah, but I don't know what the exact stat is, but estimate that less than 1% of Wharton are first generation low income.
Less than, I don't know if that's maybe, but that would mean that only five of us are first generation low income, and I think that might just like be factually incorrect.
Okay, maybe less than 5%.
Oh,
Or,
okay, 5% sounds more about right. Yeah.
yeah. But I know that the top 1% in terms of income, of household income in United States, like 20% of Penn belongs to the top 1% or something like that.
No, I believe that. I would say
Yeah.
one thing well, no. I wouldn't say I should have done, but in retrospect, I definitely would not have enjoyed it. I should have associated myself with more wealthy people because I got on campus, all my friends are QuestBridge.
Mm-hmm.
Even till now, like the majority of my friends are QuestBridge, Gates.
Yeah.
Figley students are like my primary friends. And I never was friends with someone that I was like, wow, you are insanely wealthy. I met this one person, she said that her boyfriend here, his dad was a billionaire. So I'm just like, I never, or at least for the best as I know, I
Yeah.
never met no billionaire, didn't get any billionaire perks. I should have buddied up with somebody and taken full advantage of that. But no, I mean, I stuck with what I knew and the people that I related
Yeah.
most to. But everyone, maybe it's because of how I've isolated myself or how I just behave socially in terms of just keeping my friendships one on one. But everyone's been mostly polite. Like, I've only met maybe a handful of people that I thought, wow, you are actually a brat. But
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, everyone's been polite. Now, maybe not everyone has a comprehensive perspective of how life is lived for the majority of Americans or Americans that are low income, but they have, I'm going to use the word and I'm going to say this very loosely, they have intentions in the right places.
Mm-hmm.
They have positive, like good intentions, even though, you know, that's an interesting way to phrase it when you are a misguided person on occasion. But everyone comes from a place of good intentions, which is something that I appreciated
Yeah.
my time here at Wharton.
Yeah. I do agree with you. Yes. Yes. All right. Next slide.
Oh, we didn't even do a mindset shift.
Wait. Okay. Wait.
It's not that deep.
I feel like
We talked about it a little bit.
mindset shift from high school to college was just, whoa, the world is so much bigger now.
Literally that.
You got to
In
learn
a
as much as
nutshell.
you can.
Exactly that.
And it sort of feels like you're always in a race because there's always so much that you can do.
Yeah.
And I think I went through so many different emotions, like happiness, sadness, anger, this and that. And it was just the college just feels so much more faster and like so much more rapid. And I actually liked it. And I think for me, when I went back home to Northeast Philadelphia, the pace of life just went so slow that I got so bored so fast. Yeah.
I don't have too much to add to that. It's exactly that, especially here at Penn and Wharton. Everything is done at scale and everything is done to aim to be at the top of the world. And whether it's on the corporate and the political end, every single thing is done for that idea and that purpose. So you're very quickly overwhelmed by how big the world is and how much access you have to the furthest reaches of the world. So
Yeah.
that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, and I think one more thing to add is when I was back in high school or back at home, I would think in like 6 hour blocks of like saying, hey, I have to do my lunch and I have to eat lunch and I can play some video games.
Yeah.
But when you're here at Wharton, you're sometimes thinking in 15-minute blocks, 30-minute blocks, and you're like, oh my gosh, I have a meeting. Right after my meeting, I'm gonna go work out. Right after my workout, I'm gonna go to class. Right after class, I'm gonna go have lunch with a friend, and I'm gonna have this networking call right after. So it's a lot more rapid, and you're like locked in. You're just okay. Next 30 minutes, next hour, I'm gonna do this. So it's kind of crazy. All right.
Yeah.
Next slide. So poets and quants.
I'm not gonna lie. I can tell you about the moment I found out. I was working a shift at CHOP because I didn't talk too much about my extracurriculars here. But one of the things I do is I'm a tax preparer for a campaign for working families at one of the VITA sites. VITA is Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. So basically, it's an IRS funded program that gives volunteers an opportunity to assist people in underserved communities with their taxes. There's quite a bit of research and history on the benefits of the earned income tax credit and child tax credit and why that's useful on both the health side and political side or economic side, but I'm not going to get into that. But basically, here's the story. I was in the shift and I received the email and said, oh, you were selected for Poets in Quants Best and Brightest. And I'd known what that was before because I had seen other upperclassmen that I had admired or I had heard of in the way that their reputation preceded them. I thought immediately, yay, but also, yeah, a huge wave of imposter syndrome when this.
Wait, does only one person get it or like one?
Two. So myself and Shivani.
Okay. Yeah, I know Shivani. Yeah.
So it's two. They have 50 business schools and then they pick the undergraduate office nominates 2 people.
Per school.
Per school. So the undergraduate office specifically will send their nominations, which is where this got weird for me because it was 0 application, right? You just get the random email that you were nominated. There is no judging. Like, you have it. And It was wild for me because the title is Best and Brightest. And I do not for a second believe that I am by any means the best and brightest, one of the best and brightest in my class. I mean, maybe you can say I'd always felt that I was middle of the pack, right? And part of that was maybe the high focus of recruiting and where, and my lack of focus in recruiting and really just chasing whatever it is I thought was fun for me at the time or stimulating for me at the time. Or maybe it was just some of the people I spoke to here and how incredible they are. But I'd always felt myself right at the middle. So to get that sense of recognition at that level was very weird. Quite a bit of imposter syndrome. I was in an elevator, and I mentioned this to maybe a couple of friends, and he just said jokingly, like, oh, is this the best Wharton has to offer? I was like, no, I definitely don't think I'm the best Wharton has to offer. But at the same time, I won't discredit like the nomination. I won't discredit what people saw in me. And I won't discredit the people that it took for me to be here and the people that gave me the opportunity and platform to get to that nomination. And I also, to some degree, don't want to discredit the amount of hard work that it took to get there because it was life at Penn. It's a grind. And in my head, I think everyone's always grinding. Recently, I'm broadening out just the people that I know, the people that I talk to. That's not the case. Like, quite a few people are, but not everyone's doing it to 5 hours of sleep a night for the entire school year, stressing yourself beyond thin, burning out frequently, starting and failing. I think these are very common things that people do, but maybe I would say 20% of Penn students really do that and really have that cyclical burnout. But I'd imagine that the nomination discussion for that was neck and neck all across the board. I would say between the 2 people that got nominated and the next 10 to 20, maybe even 50, I'd imagine that was somewhat of a, heated discussion because there's so many incredible people that you meet here at Penn, here at Wharton, and so many people that push the envelope of what you think is even possible. Like, people move heaven and earth here. And that's something I always have had a deep sense of admiration for. And, a deep sense of envy for. And that's kind of been part of my motivation to always chase novelty and always chase curiosity, because that's really where, that's where change happens, and that's where, the most exciting moves happen. And so really the Poets and Quants nomination, I mean, it's interesting because part of feeling that you're in the middle of the pack means that there's no expectation for you. And you can just really be the best of yourself and the most of who you are at any point in time. I think to some degree, I whenever you get into a leadership position, you have to conduct yourself in a particular way. But having that level of recognition makes me think, okay, now I kind of have to, people have expectations, and I've noticed that, people actually genuinely have expectations that come with it. But, stepping up to the challenge, stepping up to the plate, and stepping up to appreciating the moment has been huge for me. And I talking to some of my mentors about it in the graduating class, and they say, okay, well, have you taken the time to be present and taking the time? And one of my mentors, who's like very one of the most incredible people I've ever met, and she was like, well, I hope you're proud of yourself, was something that she said. And I thought to myself, I was like, I appreciate the moment, but I think some of the imposter syndrome stopped me from really being, oh, I'm actually proud of myself and proud of how much time and effort and work it took to get to this point. But it's an incredible honor. I don't really have much else to say about it. I'm just excited to, start my career. I'm excited to graduate. Just, a sense of excitement.
Yeah. Yeah, congrats on pros and quants. I didn't
Yeah.
know it was like, I didn't know the process at all, so that's really cool to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay, so now we'll talk about finding community at Penn. You want to go first and talk about
I can go first. So, I mentioned already I went to a PWI in high school. First thing I did, because of the way FGLI students are set up, a lot of them tend to be black or people of color. First thing I did was, I connected with all the black people before I even got here. Like, there's a whole Black at Penn Snapchat group me, whatever. Like, that was my first community touching down. It was Black at Penn and QuestBridge, and then it immediately became QuestBridge and Black at Penn. Not necessarily there's a Jack and Joe, a little bit more wealthy side of it, but then there's okay, you come from a FGLI background, you're Gates, you're QuestBridge. Like, this is sort of my niche, and those are who my friends are now and today. But there's a very strong and powerful black community here at Penn, and I lucked out. Like I told you earlier, I didn't know anything when I was applying for college. I kind of yada in terms of college selection, but I lucked out in terms of fit, because I'd always had that somewhat pre-professional side to me that Penn kind of compounded and polished, but I 100% had that need for a black community that I was not getting in my high school. And black community here at Penn, especially when you have that both being black and highly pre-professional, that's here, and it's amazing. And tapping into all these different events with PASA and PSL and getting to meet so many different cool and unique people from all these cultural backgrounds. Like, the diaspora is strong here at Penn. Specifically when it comes to Nigerians, there are Nigerians galore here at Penn. So having that relationship and that sense of community definitely was an amazing experience for me. One thing that you get to benefit from being here at Penn is that there's immediate access to an abundant amount of culture. And you most likely will never, as outside of college, you most likely will never get that access again in your life. Just factually speaking. Yeah. I can't go from being at a Nigerian event one time and then a South Indian event the next day. Like, it's just not gonna happen anywhere else but in college, and it's not gonna be as easily accessible anywhere else but in college. But yeah, that's been my core community here, and I mentioned the JWS community as well. Doing the JWS and the Students Federal Credit Union kind of was my way of making sure I branch out beyond the black community and I get to meet people of different and unique backgrounds. But that kind of is my cornerstone. When I think about, people learning so-and-so about me, I think, people within this community, right? And when you're in a school of 10,000 undergraduates, you have to find your niche, you have to find your community. And so finding that niche and community was important. You see the same people at frequent events, you build relationships across classes, you have a sense of familiarity for faces, and you know about other people. And I'd say definitely made my college experience bearable. That's what I would say about Black at Penn.
Gotcha. I think for me, my biggest community here at Penn is Wharton Leadership Ventures. And just to preface what it is, it's a outdoor expedition sort of program where there are only about 12 of us at any given time, 12 to 18 of us, and we are all Wharton students. We help sort of introduce the outdoor experiences to other students at Penn, and we go at it through a leadership development angle. But for me, going to Wharton was very difficult at first because I had imposter syndrome. I didn't know who to talk to. I ended up having pretty much zero Wharton friends. And I was mainly friends with engineering friends or people from Philadelphia, and definitely a lot of Asian people. But for me, connecting with the Wharton community was really difficult. So I've always felt out of place, but during my sophomore year, I came across mountain biking and Wharton Leadership Ventures, and I'm really big into the outdoors. So I immediately applied to get into this organization, got in, and from there, I think I started to form genuine friendships with the Wharton community, and yeah, that was really really fun. So I think for me that was my biggest community. I'm also, I mean, I was also part of a frat. I dropped the frat, but I'm still close friends with them, and yeah, I'd say like people know a lot about me just through my photography and like my, I guess, just curiosity for adventure. So I'd say I made a lot of friends through like that shared commonality as well. Yeah.
That's great.
Cool. And then we can talk, I guess, briefly on the mental health at Penn. So I think, I mean, if you don't know, but UPenn is like one of the most depressed colleges here in the U.S. And I think one of the main things is that there is a heavy like reliance on a heavy prevalence of pre-professionalism, and that sort of lends itself to not really sharing about who you are authentically and having to keep up with this image of like, hey, I've got everything, in order. I'm working towards my career. I'm doing all these different things, as well as balancing that with, social life, everything else, and that can wear people down. So I think there's definitely a prevalence of that, and I can share my story. So I think, freshman year I struggled a lot just growing up with, things back at home and adjusting to college. I had to go seek therapy and counseling during my freshman year, and that was really beneficial to me, and it really, I guess, changed my thought process of how I approach things. Because initially I was very skeptical of people. I would envy people. I would not have nice thoughts to myself. And afterwards, I started behaving a lot better towards myself and to other people.
Mental health is a major thing here at Penn. I mean, I've had like different moments I can't even speak about, but for myself personally, mental health for me was really navigating where my fit was. And I wouldn't say I really understood really where I fit in, even until my senior year. It wasn't until my senior year where I thought, okay, pieces are coming together. I'm almost 100% myself and can really direct myself and chase what I want based on my own curiosity. Much of that is due to pre-professionalism. I think the reason why I was able to sort of take off and have a bit of a spike in senior year is because I had that final offer from the summer, and then I thought, well, if I no longer have to think about my career as a thing that I have to figure out and construct and do, what's left? Well, what's left is really just being curious and doing all the things that you find fun and exciting, right? So that really was what structured my senior year. But as far as the years beforehand, that consistent imposter syndrome of feeling as though whatever you were doing wasn't quite there, wasn't quite enough. It was a heavy load. I mean, some of my professors, and I'm transparent with some of them, about when I'm going through it, if I ever go through a specific amount of burnout, like they knew at the times when that happened, and where it was just like you lay in your bed the entire day, you can't do anything, because it sucks, right? And you're burnt and you're spent and you just can't do much. And that's a compounding process there, because it's usually the longer you're stuck, the more things add up, the harder it is to get out of it, and you just have to bite the bullet. And that's the compounding feeling of imposter syndrome. But with that, like I had a burnout once a semester here at Penn, maybe sometimes multiple times a semester, and really getting in the motivation of pushing through and consistently bringing in the best of myself was a hard thing to do, to be honest. And with mental health at Penn, that is, not gonna lie, I don't want to say that's everybody's experience, but it really feels like it is. Whenever I talk to anybody else here at Penn, they say, "You've articulated that, and I see and recognize it. I see you." And not everybody should be able to see you in that way. That means that so many people here have experienced it to some degree and can empathize with it. And I think they can experience it to a very intense degree and empathize with it, which is an unfortunate situation to be in. One of the ways that I've been able to get out of, the sense of imposter syndrome and poor mental health is one, by adopting an understanding that the pursuit of happiness, or the state of being somewhat content, isn't necessarily the baseline for existence. I think life and emotions within life is somewhat sinusoidal, and any part within that curve is a good baseline to be at, as long as you're not there for a long period of time.
Yeah.
You read really any book, or you read any autobiography about anyone noteworthy, when I say anyone noteworthy, I don't mean our business book. I mean somebody that lived and experienced some real deep shit. Like, it's never a stagnant state of being happy all the time. Some of the greatest authors are people that lived really sucky lives and coped with it in very self-destructive ways. So getting that understanding of the pursuit of happiness, or just happiness not being the baseline, relieved a lot of stress and let me know that whatever I'm feeling at the moment, at any point in time, is some piece of normal.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the classes that evolving from that I took was existential despair. And if you ever get the chance, please take that class. It's amazing. It's every spring semester. So if you find yourself that you ended up getting into Penn, try to beeline for that class every spring semester. But quite a bit of it is about being present. And that's something that is necessary for mental health. Like, existing for the sake of being is something that's so enlightening and so relieving, where you're not existing for the sake of chasing pre-professionalism. You're not so much trying to compare yourself and be comprehensive and have that manufactured authenticity, You're just existing for the sake of existing and feeling the sun on your face and enjoying the experience of riding the SEPTA, or enjoying the experience of sitting down and feeling your butt ache from sitting too long for a video recording. Like, having that sense does a lot of relief for your mental health, and I think I needed that before grad. I'm taking the class right now, and I think it should be a required course, although I know it's limited, but like, it was required for me to exit Penn and go into life okay. So that was my mental health experience at Penn. Quite a bit of burnout compounded by imposter syndrome, but with a better ending and a better outlook. I'm truly grateful for my time here at Penn. I think it was definitely trial by fire, but it was something that I needed personally to grow. I know not everyone goes through that same trial by fire and say, "Hey, that was a good experience, 10 out of 10. If I could do it all over, I'd do it again." But I mean, certainly there are things I would do differently, but I think I would do it again. I think despite some of, the ups and downs within it and the lows of it, I think it was necessary for me to come into myself and both understand what I don't want and what I don't want to be, and really where my strengths lie and where I should be, and how I really should conceptualize myself. That was something I'm glad that I experienced at Penn, really what Penn did for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, I echo a lot of that. Yeah, I think for me, there was a time in freshman spring, I think in February, where I just cried every single day. And that was a part, as a result of imposter syndrome, work, stress at school. I also was going through a concussion at the time and struggled with like all my family behavioral issues. So that was a crazy moment.
Yeah.
And I think since then, so that was like a trial by fire. And since then, I sort of learned to recoup a lot of that and improve upon myself in terms of my outlook on life, what I value, and being very present. And also, I think another thing about mental health at Penn is your support network is like a lot. It's like everything. And like make sure to have like those friends and to find those people, because during like my worst times, like I had to find those friends and be like, hey, like bro, I am so out of it. I don't know what to do. And we just grab dinner and just have fun or just do nothing and just chill. But I think, yeah, just like in general, like you always want to have someone that you can confide in and always have someone that you could just like hang out and just do nothing or just like take your mind off of things. Like always find those people in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. This is huge for me, the volunteering class, because really, I can talk a little bit about just my junior year in general. I'd say junior year was a pivot point for me. Junior year, I took Dr. Harkavy's, one of his classes, and for those who don't know, Dr. Harkavy is one of the founders of the Netter Center. And the Netter Center is Penn's arm for, I guess, community engagement with Philadelphia, or West Philadelphia specifically. And he talked quite a bit of models for social change and the university's responsibility to affect social change locally and support communities locally. Taking that class was transformative in more ways that I will mention in this interview, but that was my motivation for actually joining Professor Scott's Accounting 2110, which is a class where we go out into the community and we volunteer as tax preparers. This was part of me seeing Philadelphia. Of course, I've been out in Philly quite a bit and done, just different things for either clubs or going out with friends, but that was where I sat in community centers, I sat in churches, I sat in career services locations, and really got to know people within the community. And it was an eye-opening moment on all the things I could be as a person outside of the Penn bubble of pre-professionalism. And I would say that Professor Scott's, in particular, one of my favorite professors here at Penn, in all honesty. And he's amazing in the sense of, first of all, his teaching style worked well for me. He also taught accounting 1020, accounting 102, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
And that, I tried taking accounting my sophomore year at the first semester. I dropped it just because it was the way the professor taught it was too difficult. But he teaches in a way, or taught in a way that clicked for me. And taking his class even further on, he emphasized that impact and the importance of the VITA program. Our tax system is one of the biggest ways that we, how do I put this? In terms of fiscal policy, it's one of the best ways for wealth redistribution, if that makes sense. And it's our biggest safety net. Specifically, the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit, those two specifically. They're the ways that families and communities, they're the ways that they're able to get enough money to, do some of the extra things they need to do, cover certain expenses. Like, it's a very significant component of our social safety net. And what the VITA program does is that it increases accessibility to it. Okay? It serves those communities and makes it so that if you have absolutely no understanding about taxes, you're fine. There are people there that are able to help you, and when you volunteer, this provides access. Some people don't speak English very well. Some people can't read. And there is so much of a component in there of what exactly did you do in your time at Penn? What exactly, what are you even doing here? Like, if it's not for an effect of causing actual impact beyond yourself. And this is a very funny thing, because that's what so many people write in their college applications. It's like, oh, I want to change the world, I want to do positive impact, blah, 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 blah. And then they get here, they get taken in by pre-professionalism, and all of a sudden they're working at, wherever for their own personal advancement. And what Dr. Harkavy really harped on was, you as a guest within Philadelphia, and you as a person with so much to have, resources to give, you hold a responsibility for sharing that. And it's not even a matter of changing the world. You don't need to think about scale. You don't need to think about developing a model that's implemented in other communities. You just need to think about direct relationship building and being relationship centered, relationship focused. And that's some of the philosophy within the Metter Center, and as well as the Civic House, which is another community service house here at Penn. And that really has shaped my perception of community engagement moving forward, and really how I will conduct myself in some of my endeavors. It's that combination of classes, taking Harkavy in the fall and Scott in the spring. That was my springboard. And when I got into the summer and sent out an email, hey, is anyone interested in being more involved with Campaign for Working Families in the VITA program? I jumped at it. I started a club specifically to get students who are interested in preparing taxes, to support them, hand them SEPTA cards, help them through training, and get them out volunteering. I joined, CHOP. I work for CHOP as a taxpayer, CHOP MFP, Medical Financial Partnership, as a tax preparer. And so I'm there Thursday night, Tuesday night, and Saturday morning. I was there this morning. And, I've been doing that the entire tax season. And it's been one of the most rewarding experiences I've had here at Penn. And just from the people I've met, the perspectives I've seen, it's been an amazing and incredible experience. And definitely, when you get to campus, if you get to Penn, acknowledge that responsibility and tap into the places where you can really execute for that. And I don't think you don't necessarily need to have community service as like a huge component of your life, but always try to recognize where you are, the opportunity you have, and think about how exactly you can spread that amongst others. So that's my biggest takeaway. I mean, this is a huge component of my college experience and really the highlight of my senior experience, but that's my takeaway from this class and my takeaway from the VITA program.
Yeah, I think for me, I also took accounting 2010 with Professor Scott, and I also participated in sort of like the volunteering and all. But I think I want to talk more about my other, volunteering and community service within the Philadelphia community. So freshman summer, and I guess you can see in the background actually here, but freshman summer, I was in Southwest Philadelphia with Kenny, who's my current roommate now. We set up community gardens in the King Sessing neighborhood, which is Southwest Philadelphia. It's like about a few blocks south of us, south of Penn campus. But I was there pretty much the entire summer, just growing corn, growing different things on these vacant lots, right? And there's like a whole, struggle between us and Philadelphia, because they wanted to use those vacant lots to sell to real estate developers, while we were more so saying, hey, if we turn this to community gardens, we can help elevate the people around these gardens, through like nutrition wise, giving them food, as well as it has a lot of good benefits to reducing crime rates, reducing drug usage, and giving people like activities to do, such as taking care of this garden or like connecting with other people around this garden. There was a lot of stuff like that. And we then used these, crops and sort of like, farmed all the different things. And we also cooked food for different communities in Philadelphia. So we went to South Philly, cooked a bunch of different food. We did community fridges, did all that stuff there. We also went to UC townhomes and cooked for them there. And it was, I think for me, like one of my most rewarding experiences in terms of connecting with other people and doing something that I've never really done before. And this was just because Kenny was saying, "Hey, do you want to just farm with me for the entire summer?" And I think, I mean, compared to a lot of other Wharton students, they would probably be doing like their own like venture capital internship or something like that.
Freshman year.
Yeah, yeah, and
Really?
yeah, and here's
You
just
guys are
me
PC
just
freshmen.
farming. Yeah,
But yeah, that must have been a very rewarding way to spend your summer.
yeah. So just like farming, and I think for me, the tax volunteering, I didn't do as much just because I was like, it was during the school year, so I still did it, but I didn't like. I don't think I took away a lot of like key insights during those moments. Like I would just show up and volunteer, but I wasn't really thinking about the bigger picture. Now that we're discussing, I'm like, wow, like
Yeah.
that was a really unique experience where I get to be out in the city
Yeah.
and just filling out, the income, like all those tax forms. And yeah, I think it's definitely like very like, it was like, Kai, like, yes, you go to Wharton and Wharton is a bubble, but this is like real life. This is
Mm-hmm.
what, I guess, 70% or whatever percent of Philadelphia, this is like their income. This is like what stuff that they're going through. Like, this is real people, and these aren't just your classmates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we'll be going into like our final tips to high school students and college students. We can keep it short. Just
Yeah, I'll keep it short.
yeah.
Tips to high school students. When you get to college, oh wait, I guess that's a tip to a college student. Tip to high school students: explore and do as many things as you can. Like you have basically, well, actually, that's a very broad statement because different people go with different things. But on average, high school students don't have that many responsibilities, and they're isolated by, their parents from responsibilities. So take that chance to follow as many curious things as you like. Act on impulse with your curiosity. Learn to solve a Rubik's cube.
Yeah.
Learn a new language. Do all the coolest things that you could ever imagine, and tap into understanding how big the world could be and how limitless your potential could be, because that's really what you are in high school. You're a bundle of potential. When you get to college, you're going to actually have to start actualizing that potential. So while you're still a bundle, pour as much into yourself as you can.
Yeah, I would say have that curiosity, have that fire to learn more. Another thing would be definitely talk to people older than you, or like watch videos about your role models, or like Will Smith is cool, or LeBron James is cool, or this certain, I don't know, senator is cool. Just read about their Wikipedia page and learn about how they progressed from when they were your age to now. So I think that would be my advice to high school students. Just like learn about the process of how people have gone through things.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Tips to college students.
Tips to college students: touch grass. That's my tip to college students, and I would say that only because I'm in the pre-professional environment of Penn, and there's nothing else like it here. So I'm gonna speak like tips to people that would like to come into Penn, or Penn students currently. Like, touch grass. Take a moment to be present. Feel the sun in your face, and most importantly, always keep moving forward. Like, hardships are always going to come. Keep moving forward. It doesn't matter if you blunder here or there. Keep moving forward. Get comfortable with failure and the process of moving forward from it. Because even especially here, they come in so well, high achieving and whatever, and then they experience their first couple big failures and they think, oh, wow, that's devastating. But get comfortable with it. Probably 40% of the things you do are going to fail. Maybe even more than that. Maybe it could be 60. But as long as the things that you succeed at are very high value, like, you'll come out on top. So really get comfortable with that and try to be as present as much as possible, because that'll do a lot to build up your mental health.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, I would say work out, exercise, have a good diet, don't drink a lot of alcohol, and
brush your teeth, scrub your edges.
Yeah, when you like implement like I think those very healthy daily habits, it will make going through failures a lot easy. Like it'll make it a lot easier. And also, I see people at Penn and they just party and they do this and they don't really exercise. And when they get sick, they get sick for such a long time.
Oh, okay.
Right? And I would say if you have these healthy lifestyles, you won't get sick as often. And if you do get sick, it won't be that bad. So definitely do that. I would also say don't be overly reliant on having this perfect GPA and like sacrificing everything else. Like I think yes, that GPA is very beneficial, but also those friendships and those connections that you make are very beneficial, and they will compound over time in ways that you don't know. And I think when you open yourself up to as many people as you meet and as many different opportunities and I think ways of just like stretching yourself, it might seem like it's all jumbled up at this stage in life. But maybe like 5 years down the line, you start connecting those dots and you're like, whoa, like because I was able to make this friendship and I talked to this person, I'm able to like have this thought in my head and that I can apply to this other thing, or like I can like I don't know, like maybe like even I don't know, but I would say when you expose yourself to as many different things as possible, you gain more insight into how you're conducting your own life.
Yeah, that's good.
So closing thoughts.
I think we've gone on for quite a bit. I don't know how long it's been. So I don't have much to say in closing. I would say, take care of yourself, be curious, and take full advantage of the opportunities in front of you.
Fire. And then for me, it's thank you so much, Daniel, for making this video possible. I think, like, I was looking online and just like searching, looking about like, is there any first generation low income people, and talking about their own experiences. And I think there weren't that many people coming from a very pre-professional like business background talking about their Figly experience.
So there's nowhere else like this on earth.
Yeah.
I don't think so, at least.
Yeah, and also just like people talk about Wharton and stuff. There's not that many, I guess, people talking about it. So I thought that this would be a good video to help you, the viewer. And yeah, like I'm excited to see how this would affect someone who's watching the video and maybe giving them better insight to how we are and what Penn is and everything.
Yeah.
So cool. We're ending the video. Stop recording.